Hello and welcome to Pods Like Us. I'm Martin Quibell, known to my friends as Marv, and this time I'm speaking to John from the show What's Up with John and Rena. Hey John, thanks for speaking today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Martin. I really appreciate you having me on. I love reaching out to people on other parts of the planet, so this is really exciting to me.
Cool. Hopefully I got the title correct because it's strange because the history of the show that's out there
Oh my, yeah.
is quite varied. It starts as one thing with what was it called again? A show.
There's been so many. Originally, cautionary tale. I was feeling bad, feeling down on myself. I was diagnosed with depression. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. It turned out I did not have that, fortunately, because it's hugely vilified across all realms. It turned out I was depressed and I have ADHD. So, if you're a spaz and you're sad, it could be many different things. Long and short of it, I was in Los Angeles at a job. I had the resources to go buy a portable recorder. I'm like, hey, podcasting's coming on. It's about 2014 at the time. And I saw so much downtrodden, so many people way worse than me and my so-called problems in my own head. I lived right next door to Skid Row, literally the Skid Row in Los Angeles. So I'm like, wow, that'd be fun. The ADHD kicks in. I want some exciting interviews. Let's grab a mic and go interview crazy people. So that's where that started. The name of that show was originally Bipolar Style. And here's the cautionary tale part. Got a cute logo, looks cool, attractive to maybe the right audience. However, the name is scary. If you're trying to do a podcast and get it known, well, there's two things. People don't share anything to do with mental health, rarely. Smart people don't. I found out years later, like, oh, it's probably a mistake. Be careful the labels that you embrace for yourself. So the podcast that Rena and I are working on is a really old RSS feed that just keeps repeating and repeating. And I feel a lot that we're almost like a band. Like she's joined my band in this case because this is my RSS feed and she has her own. But we've kind of like formed a little super group of sorts, if you will. And over the time, now I've changed it to names like Signal Jams or just different things depending on what I wanted to do with the feed. So I encourage people to do that. Like think of your first RSS feed as maybe your practice feed. Keep it around forever. Learn how to do podcasting and don't be afraid to change anything. So it's hard to follow. If you go down, and I intentionally left a few things in. At some point I was interviewing NFT artists when the NFT craze was coming around. I keep a few of the good ones in there. Sometimes I need to go get a different kind of job in a different industry. So I end up deleting half of them where I say edgy things. I called the podcast Deviant Lounge because I wanted to play with people with different ideas to just sit around and talk. And that was what Rena and I had met on. We were working on that. And it sounded good enough where I'm like, I don't think Deviant Lounge is going to attract the right crowd. Let's call it just something really generic like What's Up. So What's Up is effectively a lounge, a fun little gym for podcasters, people who actually like talking on the mic, just to come out and talk about things. We don't even have to talk about gear or how you did it or specifically anything about the perfunctory parts of podcasting. It's just nice to commiserate with other podcasters.
Yeah, and just to generally chat about whatever comes to mind, which is what you seem to do on there. There's no actual, seemingly, it's not like you go in there with a reason to chat. It's just because you go in there because you want to talk with like-minded people and find out what makes them tick and what's irritating them or what's got their interest at that time.
Literally, what's up? Let's talk about what's up. And a lot of it comes from our presence on X, for example, which is completely a show. I hate it, but I do know about 10 people there that let's go check in to make sure the world is still rotating. And all of those people are podcasters. So what happened over time is they all individually have their own projects. I have a different podcast for the art and design field. But I need a place to come and practice, to come and spar, to try new ideas. The idea of putting music up as an episode instead of not anybody else's music, putting your own music up as a podcast episode, to try new ideas like that. That it reminds me of a time when I used to try to journal. And when I first started journaling, I thought every page had to be perfect. I thought if my pen stroke was off, I screwed it up. One day I went to a therapist, said, hey, write anything. So my journals now look like a psychopath scribble book, but it feels much better. And I think in this way, that's what What's Up is of a podcast. When we have an idea, the core idea is generally there for a podcast. We don't just set a time and meet and hope to talk about anything because both of us are pretty busy. But recently, we've talked about the cell phone ban. In America, many of the conservative states are banning cell phones in schools now. Just don't bring it to school. Comedy people, there's been some live rock shows now where they ban cell phones. So that was a topic. Hey, you want to talk about the cell phone ban? We text back and forth. Sure, let's talk about it. Once we get on the mics, though, of course, it just becomes, hey, what have you been up to? Oh, I talked to that one the other day. Remember that guy we met? Comes out into a whole thing. After about 45 minutes, we'll have gotten it off our chest. We'll have covered the cell phone ban or whatever the topic is. And then, like your editor, I have to go listen to it all back and hopefully find something that's interesting. So the way I edit is I will put it on in the background and go start playing a video game and listen. And the moment I have to pause my thought in the video game, I'm like, what the f am I listening to? That's the moment I know I should probably cut that right there or even earlier. Because I like the idea of when you're editing, cutting off the conversation almost mid-sentence, maybe not mid-sentence, but 3/4 of the way into the conversation. So the idea is people listen through the end, not almost to the end. A lot of podcasters start talking about the wind down 5 minutes before they're done, and the listener senses the wind down, and they're out of there. So they get these completion rates of like 70%, where ours are going like 110 because people are waiting all the way through the end because I literally cut off the topic, mid-topic, before it's finished.
Right.
It's kind of sick. It's kind of mental. It's kind of like doing the shaving a haircut without the last note going. Everyone's like, no, do the last note. Do it. So in that way, I think it's kind of fun. Or the Elvis has left the building, wait, that's it? How did you stop? Why did you stop podcast right there? Next thing you know, it's activated the next episode. So it's kind of fun. I play with it that way.
Now I hope that Roger Rabbit isn't going to tear through this wall and finish shaving a haircut off for me.
That's right. Good.
So when I first started listening, the first one that's on the feed is something that you called Daily Emotions.
That was my attempt at smoothing off, continuing a mental health podcast more genuinely, right? And like, okay, well, maybe we could do it with emotions. So I adopted John Emotions. John Emotions. All right, it sounds cool. And used the same little logo. But again, it wasn't necessarily the name or not people not sharing. Bipolar Style, kind of a hard share on social. Daily Emotions, maybe a little easier to share. However, you tend to focus on what you focus on consumes you. Yeah. And if I'm doing a podcast on mental health, everything I'm reading, I'm studying is about mental health. And if you're trying to heal, it's hard when now that you've healed, you're just still consumed with it. And then a lot of the guests also were now sharing what a lot of people would commonly refer to as trauma dumping. Yep. Well, by my invitation, come trauma dump. I didn't say it that way, but after a while, I realized that was what I was enduring. So yeah, I just tucked it away. I put the Daily Emotions away. That was a good name, though. People really like that. I have a branding and marketing background. So first is the name. Like, does your podcast have a name or a logo that would look cool on a t-shirt? I work backwards like a band.
That's a cool idea. So, I mean, what were the things that what introduced you to podcasting then? What shows or things were you listening to that sort of brought you into the podcasting world?
For sure. So I had a background in music in the San Francisco Bay Area, who are local bands, that whole thing. So I grew up with one guy had become a comic. I didn't really track him, but once I had moved to Los Angeles, 2015, 2014-ish, my buddy said, oh yeah, Dean is down there. So podcasts weren't huge. We had the tech, and being musicians, we had mics and know how to record and all that. So none of that was really an issue, just motivation. So I listened to a guy named Dean Del Rey.
Yeah.
Dean Del Rey has a podcast called Let There Be Talk.
Yeah.
Dean Del Rey is a huge AC/DC fan. He's a good Bon Scott impressionist and a pretty good stand-up, right? He's toured with Mark Maron and Bill Burr, people like that. So he's up there. Most people haven't heard of him. But his rock show, Let There Be Talk, is epic because he stayed in the music industry long enough and he's made it high enough into the comic world so he can reach out to the top hard rock heavy metal artists in the world. You want to hear a conversation with Nikki Sixx, Geezer Butler, the guys from AC/DC, people who don't ever do interviews. Dean was getting them. And me, in my envy, I'm sitting there going, that's all he's doing? Are you kidding me? That's all. This is stupid. I could do that. Well, of course, your ego says you can do that. And most people think they can. But once you try to do something, it's a whole different orientation. So yeah, I've always challenged myself. So once I heard people doing that, I'm like, I want to do that because I used to do public broadcasting when I was a kid. I was in the radio school. Our high school radio station actually had a transmitter. People in 20 miles from our high school could hear our stuff. So we had a license. We were playing Raven and all the old heavy metal bands that were importing from the UK. We were showing that to the Bay Area in like 1980. So that was early start. Went to TV school. My buddy Gary, bootleg cowboy, who's on the show pretty frequently, he was a bootlegger, filmer.
Yep.
Go make tapes at the concerts. We met at college and we were in school for TV broadcasting. We both wanted to make film. Yep. Well, that's not a job either, apparently. So I'm like, well, what am I going to do for a job? I got into marketing, ended up living in San Francisco, and Gary and I did literally like a Wayne's World TV show. San Francisco has public access cable.
Yep.
And the local standards in America basically means if the local community doesn't care what you do, you won't get in trouble. So we could curse, we could do whatever we wanted on our dumb little show. And so that was the impetus of it all. Dude, we could just have a show. It almost became like that Matrix, we live in a simulation type of thing where let's just pretend we can do anything. And sure enough, yeah, we made a show. That was the bug. So I got bit by that. And from then on, when I saw the technology was, oh, wait, I can record people on the streets, upload a MP3 to a website. What? And it'll just go everywhere. That's amazing. Let's do that forevermore. That was the start of it, really. Just kind of combining the situation I was in Los Angeles, just rich with interview potential and my existing knowledge of the equipment.
20 years since RSS started. Wow.
I love that. Year. That's the one thing. RSS and downloadability to me are what make a podcast. That's the pod and the cast. And I hear a lot of people just getting divisive or divided over video versus audio. I'm like, no. Don't be distracted by that fight. It doesn't matter. Make sure we could always download the file because otherwise we're going to be trapped in streaming subscription hell forevermore.
So we've done the introduction, becoming a podcaster, starting your own podcast, about the structure, and then and then you've done the transition actually from that to basically what's up with John and Reena that I've put on the notes a bit jokingly as the John and Reena show.
Yeah. Wow. So Reena is great. This is the benefit of being on Twitter, for example.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have gotten this on Facebook or anywhere else. It's almost like if you want to go find the wild ones, go to the wild. And Reena was out there. She was doing it. Her experience working in real TV production on the Jerry Springer show, having a background in TV production from interning and whatnot through school, I knew what kind of person she had to have been. And then I heard her show, of course, Better Call Daddy is a great show. And moreover, after 2 or 3 years of seeing her on the internet, she's continually putting on shows and helping people. I'm like, that's a winner. She's the kind of person in the music scene. So let's say we're in a music scene. There's always a club promoter who you want to know, right? It's that gal who's booking every best show. She knows all the good bands. She's super friendly. She doesn't burn bridges. And I'm like, cool, I want to work with her on something. So we had been back and forth on a lot of things and might have both hit a lull in what we were doing on our, let's call it real podcasts. And we're like, let's just jam a bit because we always have friends, other podcasters that are saying, hey, can I come on your show? I want to be on your show. Well, they're not really appropriate for my graphic design podcast and they might not be a good fit for Better Call Daddy. But she and I were like, we love to talk to people, whoever, weirder the better. Yeah. It didn't really matter. So we're like, let's just do kind of a non-committal. We'll polish it up just because we have, again, those resources. We can make it look real. But that might be the key to success, making it look big and professional or polished. But really, it's just two goofballs getting together, talking. So in that aspect, it really is authentic or genuine. It's just not scripted at all.
Plus, there's the nice difference I mean, you've got similarities to each other in some ways, both you and Rena. But the
Yeah.
fact that there's also slight differences as well, because Rena, when I've listened to or watched Better Call Daddy, Rena has this incredible ability, and I think it's natural. I don't think it necessarily comes from her being a producer. I think it's just naturally within her to be able to get things out of people in a way that's comfortable, but that nobody else can get out of people. It's to get that extra thing and to almost feel like when I've spoken with her and I've heard you when you've been speaking to her in the show as well, it's almost like she makes you feel better for getting that out there and makes you, as a person, realize that that is there and almost face it and realize what you need to do about it. She just has that innate ability to be able to get that out of people.
Yeah, almost like a therapist. And I think you're right. I think it's the opposite of what I said earlier.
Yeah.
I think she became a producer because she is that kind of person.
Yeah.
She's innately that way. When you listen to her or watch her, you'll notice that she does something I rarely do is listen. She listens. She's a great listener.
Mm.
And I talk too much. I'm embarrassed when I edit our episodes because I can see the waveforms and I know that that's me and I know that that's her. And I'm like, I talk way too much. She doesn't mind though. She never expresses it. And on the other side too, we're slightly different. Obviously, she's a female. I'm a dude.
Yeah.
I think she's probably slightly inherently more conservative than I am, and I'm a bit more liberal, I guess. But I think we're a great example of how liberal and conservative people can talk about everything else. And even when, like the cell phone ban, for example, we like to talk about things that bring people together, regardless of the political spectrum. But that you definitely brought that part out that I always forget. Because again, I'm an output guy. I'm constantly going, and she is a great listener. Based on what we're talking about now, I want to give her more space for her questions to come out.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because when I'm talking, she's over here listening to the conversation, and she could drop in a question anytime if I leave space.
I mean, even Jerry mentioned it to her when when Jerry Springer was on Better Call Daddy. He
Yeah.
even talked about that being a plus point to her being a producer, is that then he knew that he had all the information he required based on what she had garnered from the people on the show already through that.
Yeah. Yeah. She's a good accumulator because she does listen. And if you listen a lot, you're able to connect dots better. And I call her a maven. She's the kind of person who always has somebody in the back of her mind for a thing, for example. So when she meets a new person, she goes, "Oh, you'd be perfect for that." Like the way we met. She guess you guys
Introduced
followed each
us.
other, right? And you guys had enough rapport where you needed or wanted to talk to somebody about a thing. And we do the same thing. I'm like, I want to do a gig. I want to jam. Like the musician did. Like, I feel like jamming. Like, about what? I don't know. Let's just go jam. You got anybody that we can jam with? So from that sense, when people do want to jam, I'm like, yeah, let's jam. Let's get on and have a jam session. So I appreciate that she's able to do that because honestly, without that, we wouldn't have guests. It would just be her and I talking, which is okay, but it's not perfect.
So she's almost the sort of person that can drive a conversation by the listening, whereas you're the reactionary in a sense.
Yeah, yeah. It's like in sports, I think they call it one's play by play and one's color. One's color commentary and one's play by play. Play by play guy has to really know the player's numbers, what's going on. And the other guy's the idiot who just keeps talking and filling air with hopefully the right frequencies of noise. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I think we are that way. But now I'm becoming very self-conscious about it as we talk about it. I'm like, I got to give Rena more space. Hey, Rena, if you're listening to this, remind me to give you more space. Rena is down at Podcast Movement right now. So shout out to her and Better Call Daddy and everybody at Podcast Movement. You guys are probably home by now, but thanks for showing up and keeping the industry alive.
Well, on August the 31st, you'll be able to listen to this and be able to notice it.
Yeah. I think of that. The podcast industry in that sense reminds me of the music industry. There are musicians and then there are music industry people that aren't necessarily musicians. And the podcast industry, I think, is the same way. There are podcasters and most of the quote unquote industry are just people who well, I don't know, want a cool job. They don't want a normal job. Like I worked at Live Nation for several years. That was a cool job. Free concerts, got to eat craft services with the big rock stars. But after a while, it's like, it's a job. Like we've turned the fun into a commodity.
Yeah. Yeah. You need to sometimes throw a bit of something in there to mess it all up
Yeah.
to make it more interesting in a
Yeah. A
sense.
little chaos, right?
So using your expertise in the history with podcasting, logo and sound of shows. So how do you approach that? And what do you think is the importance of both of those, the logo and the sound and the music in shows?
Sure, sure. I think let's start with the logo first.
Yep.
And even before that, I think the name is more important. I think a name of a show is so important, just like the name of you, your person, your business. Naming is so critical. And I go deep into the etymology of words, the sounds of words. Is it holy? Is it evil? I mean, the whole thing, right? So even getting down to the words. And then is the .com available? Is your social handle available on the platform you want?
Yep.
Not with any extra words, like specifically, like we had a show called Signal Jams. Is Signal Jams available? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, first coming up with a cool name that represents what you think the show is going to sound like. And this is where it comes to music, a band. What is our band? Like, oh, we're all a bunch of metal guys. So we're not going to be Fluffy Kitten. That's not the name. This is going to be a Black Weapon or something. That would be the name of a band, right? So name and then logo. And I really do come down to, does it look cool on a t-shirt? Because
Yep.
ultimately you're going to have to sell something. If you're just a hobby podcast and you're not doing it for work where you're already making products, your podcast is going to have to sell something. You might as well sell cool t-shirts, bands, or
Yep.
go do the band method, sell tickets to your appearances and t-shirts. So if your name and your logo doesn't look cool on a t-shirt, and I'm not talking album artwork, I'm talking just the logo itself, the icon. Think of Van Halen or Motorhead or Black Flag, or so iconic, right?
Yep.
That's what every podcaster should have for their logo. Now, getting on beyond that, once you got a cool logo and a name, I'm on the fence about music, honestly. Hold on, let me
Okay.
take it. Mostly because of rights. Music rights are so sticky these days. Unless you are literally performing the music yourself on a real instrument without samples,
Yep.
your music might get your whole podcast pulled a year or two or three from now. So that said, and the fact that I think we're not TV shows. We don't need a 30-second intro. We don't need a 20-second intro. Bunk, just get into it. I do have some mnemonic devices. A friend of mine gave me some clips. Again, it's great to have music friends. Hey, Ray, do you have any tracks you're not using? So what do you mean? I'm like, I need some podcast intro. Send me some tracks. Years ago. I'm like, perfect. So I basically live with what I got. And now there's kind of like an audio stamping. The one I use the most is sounds like a heavy metal. Someone said it sounds like wrestling music, wrestling intro music. And I'm like, all right, cool, cool. There are some where we do a lounge effect where I'll pull up some YouTube safe music from the YouTube sound library. And that's pretty cool. And put it on a bed. Because when I was going for the quote unquote deviant lounge, I wanted
Yep.
some soft jazz or piano music. I tried to bury it deep into the bed though. And a lot of people, I mean, I have hearing issues myself. I can't
Yep.
separate sound too well. So I try to keep music really low. But yeah, there's something powerful too. Right now, we're using a tone. I edit in Hindenburg. So I was typing around. I'm like, I need a tone. The Intel inside kind
Yep.
of, well, I typed in Stinger in Hindenburg sounds. And the first one I scrolled to, I'm like, 3 seconds. That's probably about right. Drag that over, listen to it. I don't know what chord that is. It's a very common chord. Sounds dead in the middle. Doesn't sound offensive, high, low. Cool. So now our audio for What's Up is simply a bunk, a tone to let you know that, hey, this episode has started. Sometimes if I'm in a mood, I'll give a quick little intro like, oh my God, this is a crazy episode. You guys are going to really dig this. Let's jump in right now with Martin. And then I'll
Yep.
peak the music and fade it out. But yeah, it's only enough. I don't want to get hung up on the music on a talking show
Yep.
more anymore than I don't want any talking in an album.
Yep.
Remember, there's a band called Sig Sig Sputnik back in the day who
Yep.
literally put advertisements in between songs on their LP, on their vinyl. I'm like, that's so crazy. That's always reminds me of people putting ads on podcasts. I'm like, you're Sig Sig Sputnik.
That's brilliant. But I do my own music, so I don't need to. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, we're blessed that way. You know, a lot of people, I feel really blessed every time I don't have to think about rights, because really then all we're doing is creating evergreen content. And we've touched about this on our show a bit too. Zombie podcast, the idea of zombie podcasts, just podcasts that you made and upload and are on some free hosting service forevermore. Pretty cool. I think that might be the way of the future. People will discover zombie podcasts and they will like them more because it's human. It's more authentic. It doesn't matter if it's crappy authentic. It's way better than polished AI.
Well, we can skip past the next one then with research, because technically research is basically life. That is the research for your show, really.
It is. Yeah. And I've had a pretty wild life. I was kicked out of the house when I was 14. So I experienced, had to figure out how to live. I had to invent what being a person was, what a man was, what's a job, what's work. So yeah, it was pretty exciting. But I say that only because if anybody is concerned that they don't have anything to talk about, just go live a little, give it time. You'll have, I mean, once you become middle age, you'll have plenty of things to talk about. Then the issue becomes of what should I hold back?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of times where you'll need a job, where you'll need people poking around doing a background check, and they don't like that you said something left or right, wrong way. So I'm like, geez, this is hard work. So a lot of that comes down to the reason why I've constantly used fake stage names, things like that. Like rock stars use their fake stage names. I'm like, well, let's use their fake name. And in a sense, poisoning the well. Like there's so much driftwood back in our channel now. Hopefully the feds will never track me down.
But that's interesting what you just said there. That's bringing it to a tangent, was the rock star names. I was nicknamed Marv back in my days when I used to work in a recording studio, which is just a name that somebody gave me.
Yeah.
But it's your name, John, as well. They're almost names that are just, they've got a punch to them. Whereas if I use my full name, and I do introduce the show with my full name.
Yeah, right.
The nickname is punchy, isn't it? It's like, oh, it's Marv, it's John.
Yeah.
And then Rena, that's a name that comes out, and all these people. If
it's
you've got
enough,
a name
right?
that comes out, it's another, we think of them as hooks in songs. It's another hook to pull people in.
That's right. Yeah, it's hard to make a single syllable common name into a hook, but if it fits and it is enough, because again, I've never been like, I don't want my whole name out there. Some people like the podcast with Bob Smith. I'm like, good on you, Bob. Like Bob probably has no skeletons in his closet and he's able to do that. But it's also boring to me. It's kind of like the difference between elevator music and a punk rock band. It's just everyone has their own style of things. And again, some things lean more toward industry, like let's make it safe and make it make money, and others lean toward more craft and artistry. So I definitely lean toward the latter there.
And even to this now, to Aaron Mankey, who does all these different shows, Law and all these shows, he's produced a new audio drama that's come out this week. That's part of the Bridgewater audio series, a spin-off from. And I was just responding to him on Threads, and I know the writer, Nicholas Tukosky, and we were just pointing out, just responding to him and saying, oh, I've listened to the first one, this, that, and the other. And he was saying how, I got a great new show from Aaron and Nick. And then he pointed something out, and I said, oh, you need to. I was just basically saying how good Nick's work is from the past and naming some of them. And then Nick happened upon the conversation and responded, and he just said, Marv, need to speak to you soon when you're available, that sort of thing. And even though it's 2.5 years, it is that punch of the Marv, and they remember even then. These podcasts that people are on, they remember being guest on these shows so much, don't they? On your show and then on mine and everybody else's. It's interesting.
I didn't even think about that. You're right. They do. For sure they will. It's kind of like the old, there's a show in America called Cheers. You guys have probably seen it too, where the heavyset guy comes in. Norm. It's Norm. It's just Norm. And it's funny that they called him Norm as in normal. Like that's the norm that you shout out a guy's single name. But you're right, Marv, and maybe John to that extent, Cher. Like when I was a kid, I'm like, how does she get away with one name? I want that life. So yeah, actually, did you know you could buy .coms with umlauts and stuff?
I didn't know.
Yeah. So I have one J with the O crossed out. I forgot. I'm not Scandinavian. HN.com. John.
That's cool.
So yeah, I might use that for my bomb repair name. Yeah, bomb repair might be the album of my EDM music, and my stage name might just be John.
So what we'll do now then is, have you got any advice for people going in the future, making their own podcast?
Definitely. It's the advice I got from my therapist when journaling. It doesn't have to be perfect. Make a mess. Just go start making a mess. You don't have to upload it. Try uploading it, get some feedback. Maybe you might not get any feedback. But the idea, I would just say, approach it as an art project. It doesn't have to be perfect. Go find friends who like to do it with you. And remember that there aren't rules. Like, are you in art or music or any other craft to make money? Are you trying to make money? I would definitely suggest go get a real job and maybe convince that employer to start a podcast. Yeah. If you just want to have a podcast, don't try to make money. Go out and have fun. Think of it like musicians do. Come up with a cool name, one that you can get a .com for. Come up with a cool logo for your T-shirt and your icon, your thumbnail down there in the podcast directory, and just start recording. Level out your sound. Learn about LUFS. Get your volumes correct. But once you're there, the mechanical part of podcasting is really easy and teachable in a week, solid. Yeah. The hard part is really being yourself. Once you become yourself, then decide if you want to become a podcaster. Because a lot of times people, once they realize who they are, they're like, oh, no, I don't want to talk about this in a podcast. Kind of like gender reveal parties. Maybe they should wait until they're like 21 to have those. It's same like before you announce that you're a podcaster, experiment. Go try out things. Yep. Borrow a mic. There's so many good apps. I'm not promoting anybody, but I know the Riverside I use, there's an app on Riverside. You can sign up for a free account, talk into the app on your phone, upload the podcast, edit it. It'll equalize your sound. There's not really an excuse to not do it, but if you're a potential podcaster and you're hesitant, it might not be the technical skill you're hesitant about. It might be you want to share something that you're not sure should be shared. Kind of like when I started telling the world, hey, I have bipolar disorder, when I did not know it either way. So always be careful of the labels you accept as a podcaster or any other performer. But man, it's free, it's there. And then you could come and hang out with people like us. And also don't be afraid to inbox people on social media. Yeah, for sure. It's social media. Who are they? Who are they to turn you down? The worst they can do is ignore you. If you want to get out there, start a podcast, and you hear of a gaming show or a comic show or a movie show that you like, so go ask them, hey, can I be on your show? I want to know about that. Or will you guys come on my show so I can ask you about your thing? Yeah. Is that too much?
Yeah. It's changed over the years as well. So another way that you could do it, if you're nervous about it, is any podcast that you like, contact them and ask them if they want you to be on their show, and then get used to it that way and see how comfortable you are from that sort of almost distance in a way. Right. Find out how comfortable you are being on someone else's show first.
Yeah. And that you brought up a good point. And the most obvious point, if you are listening to this and you're a podcaster, you are always welcome to come out and try to be a podcaster on What's Up with John and Rena. Rena and I are so accommodating to new people. We've had podcasters on that weren't sure if they wanted to be podcasters, but we just knew that they were cool people and they made for great episodes. One time at the end of an episode, I asked this guy, I'm like, yeah, it was a great episode. Your audio sounds great. What are you recording on? She said, I'm just using the app. I'm laying on my bed. So the idea that you could go from laying on your bed to being on a podcast in a minute is real. And Rena and I are always open to that. It sounds like you are too. In fact, you have to come on our show now too, to spread the love, make it circular. It's kind of like we were talking about. It's like a band thing. Now that we've jammed, we've been on the same stage together, we're going to invite you on the next gig that we have, and it becomes a whole community. So yeah, embrace that community. That's the funnest part about podcasting.
Right. In the interest of being speedy, let's see if John can do this. Name a couple of shows that you love to listen to yourself, and then give people your contact details.
For sure. So catch one of my big inspirations I talked about earlier was Let There Be Talk with DJ Ray, if you're into hard rock music. He's close with Mark Maron. I've long time been a fan of Mark Maron's WTF show. I like his style, cool, that kind of thing. And then, of course, I'm a big fan of Dave Jackson's School of Podcasting. Yeah. He'll teach you all the answers to questions that you have without having to ask them. And you can get a hold of me at Lily Studios. My last name is Lily, Lilly Studios, lilystudios.com. And I'll hook you up either way. Or you can go to deviantlounge.com and you can listen to What's Up right there on the page.
Yep. Thank you very much. I loved that episode with Dave, by the way. That was great.
I have so much more of that, dude. That was a quickie. I'm like, I got to put something up. I have 75% more of that interview to put up. He's got lots more cool stuff to say. Yeah. I'm not sure how to put it up without saying, here's part 2. I think I just might drop chunks.
You could technically call Dave an encyclopedia of podcast knowledge,
He's so good.
really.
And he was such a cool and casual interview. It was neat for me to listen back. Whoa, that's my voice talking to that Dave guy's voice. I'd been listening to him for years. Hey, it sounds like we matched together.
Yeah.
That was really neat.
Yeah, it's neat.
Awesome, Marv. Yeah, I'm not joking about coming back on our show. We could sync up anytime when Rena gets back from podcast movement. Let's make some time and reciprocate and get some more views out there and listens for the shows.
Definitely. You can find pods like us on any streaming platform, and the easy way of finding us is just to go to themarvzone.org. We're on the main screen there. You've got all the links and the contact me details. Anyway, thank you everyone for listening, and hope you listen again to another episode of Pods Like Us.
I've always thought of podcasting in this sense as like being a musician. I am a musician. And like, hey, go pick up that guitar. You know how to play it, get it to work. You know what I mean? So to me, it doesn't matter if it's Zoom or GoToMeeting or Riverside or whatever.
There you go.
Bro, hey, you're a bass player and a guitar player. What do you favor? Looks like you favor the bass, but you do have some six strings over there.
I do. I favour the bass. My go-to bass is the jazz.
Nice, classic.
But I've also got precision. I've got the old-fashioned Steinberger B2 as well.
The headless one?
The headless one from the 80s.
Well, I was showing my son that. I'm like, it was hard to find somebody playing it. So I just went, let me pull up a Sting video. And I'm like, that's what it looks like. He's like, oh, that's dope, Dad. That's really cool.
Yeah, he played it during Synchronicity, didn't he, I think?
Yeah. That was about when it first came out. I'd caught them. One of my very first concerts, I was really young. I think I was 12 or 13. And my mom was, I was a feral child. So she let me take the subway into the city to see a concert. And Sting had come, not Sting, but the Police and Ghost in the Machine tour was coming around. So 13, she said, you bring your sister. I had an 11-year-old sister. So 13-year-old and my 11-year-old sister took the train into the city, and what a fantastic show, man. Back in the day when musicians really played like a real band.
Yeah.
And since we were kids, we just like, wait, no rules? We can go anywhere? So my 11-year-old sister and me pushed our way all the way to the front. And concert goers were pretty accommodating for two, relatively small kids. They let us get all the way to the front. It was such a great time.
The only thing is, because I've seen the Tears for Fears song.
Sure.
What is it? Woman in Chains.
Okay,
Woman in Chains. Yeah, one of the greatest songs they did on that album. I think beautiful song. But you see Kurt Smith playing that bass on that video. But the only thing is, if you've ever played one, you know damn well that that's not that bass playing that. Because he's not. It doesn't sound as good as that. Plus, he's not the bass player on that song anyway. But by the by,
that's definitely something a bass player would notice. I noticed the same things with drums. Drums in movies and things like that. I'm like, there's no way. It's like that's not even period correct. I'm so anal with that stuff. I got an interesting story about Fender in particular. I used to be a hustler when I was playing music full time. I'm like, I got to get an endorsement. I need this and that. Yeah. So it turned out that Fender and Premier for a while. Was it Premier? Who the hell was it? Was Fender and Premier the same company, or was it Gretsch? Oh, it was Gretsch.
All right. Okay.
So they were in the States here. Whoever was the distributor distributed Fender, Gretsch, and a bunch of other things. Well, being a drummer, I'm like, yeah, Gretsch are pretty nice. That's cool. So I hit up this guy. I'm like, who is in charge of artist relations at Fender? And I found this guy, and we went back and forth. Like, wow, that was so great, so nice. Well, I'm like, who is this guy? His name's Tony Franklin. And it turned out he's a famous bass player. I'm like, wait a second, you work artist relations at Fender, and you're also the guy who plays on Radioactive, all those songs like that. That Tony Franklin, the fretless wonder. So I came across that was my favorite bass player I ever known because it hooked me up with some cool drums.
Cool.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. It's weird, really, if you think about it, because of Gretsch, guitar-wise, Gretsch and Fender are so different to each other, style-wise and look-wise.
Yeah, even genre-wise, like it's almost the antithesis of each other. Like the old Gretsch people in the country western and the old black and white days, Gretsch and the big hollow bodies. And then some new guys came around and said, "How about electric?"
But then Gibson, when they were in their classic period, I mean, now they're nowhere near the period as good as they used to be.
Yeah,
But way back when, if you compare a 335 to a Les Paul, they are so different in look and style to each other.
yeah. It's really interesting. I'm finally it's neat that electronic wave has finally hit the drum world.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think drummers see it this way, but it's really the difference of when guitars went from acoustic to electric.
yeah.
A lot of drummers still play acoustic, obviously, but there is this weird thing. Like a lot of people just assume electric drums are real drums now. Yeah, I'm
I
like, oh,
think I
yeah,
think what helped with that is probably something along the lines of there's a certain era where Neil Peart from
mm,
Rush went from you had his kit and you had the drum the acoustic kit and then at the back you had the electric kit and you go from one to the other.
yeah,
And I think the change came when then he started integrating them as the same kit technically. So he'd have
yep,
the electronic drums in the actual set itself. So you'd have all the set there in front of him with all of it mixed in.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then you've got Gavin Harrison does the same thing
That's
as
right.
well, from Porcupine Tree and the Pineapple Thief, their drummer, and King Crimson as well. And he does the same as well, where it's integrated. So now you do see it as part of the drum kit. Whereas when they were separating them and going, oh, this is the acoustic part, this is the electric part,
Right.
and Bill Bruford did the same in early 80s era King Crimson, where he had them separated. So I think people saw it then as two different things, whereas now, because it's
Yeah.
integrated, it's all together.
Yeah, it was before. I mean, it's funny too because the traditional trap kit that we know since the 30s,
Yep.
that was an integration, that was an amalgamation. But for 50 years, everyone's thought, no, that's the whole kit. That's the drum kit. And you're right. When those drummers, they would introduce those other things, not in a song, but during their solo, they would turn away from the kit and kind of like, look at my new toy and play with the electronics. But you're right. Now they're integrated. My kit here at home is wild. It's fully I call it a Frankenstein kit. It's a mixture of both, mostly electronics, but I have something like I have a giant marching bass drum, like a 30-inch bass drum, because I found it cheap on the internet and I modded it out. It's bitching and it's symmetrical. I play symmetrically. I play centered. I have these double bass pedals that are both headless on either pedal, and then they feed to two shafts, and the both beaters are centered. So my kick drum is dead center. I have a hi-hat on my right and left. I have a ride dead center over the bass drum so I can ride with my left or my right. Everything's fully symmetrical. I love it. People look at it, it's like, what the hell kind of thing are you playing right there? And I just show them, wait, look, it is both a righty kit
Yep.
and lefty kit. And they're like,
Wow.
oh, I get it. It looks so weird. I'm like, you'll get used to it. Yeah, it's pretty fun, man. I love playing drums. And recently, I don't know if you can see it over here, but I
Yep.
found a cheap synthesizer off internet again. And I'm going to start doing true synth music that I don't know what the hell. I curse a lot, so I'm holding back on my cursing, but I don't know anything about synths. I just know that it does make a pulsing beat. And I'm like, I could take this to my E kit, just make a little blah, 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 kind of bass line, and
Yeah.
just go over to my kit and put it all on Twitch. This is what I was talking to Rena about, my co-host. And I
Yep.
was like, why don't we just have a podcast that's only music? Like, I mean, oh, they're not paying music artists on Spotify anyway for putting songs up through the traditional channel.
Yep.
How about we make goofy songs and we upload them as that's a podcast episode? After you get 10 episodes, well, that's an album. I mean, effectively, your season is now an album. And I think it might be perfect for my weird experimental music styles. Here, I wrote down, I did a deep dive on what am I supposed to call this music I'm making. So I went to a YouTube channel. They gave me like top 20 EDM styles defined. So I sat there and listened for like 20 minutes. Like, what is this? Acid house. I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Big room. I'd never heard big room. Tech house, ghetto tech, and bleep techno. Apparently, those are about to be the music I'm going to make and try to podcast. And on that podcast, I'm going to call it bomb repair.
Oh, cool. But I mean, I don't know if you know the show Cassette Culture.
I'm about to.
Where this other guy named Martin, I chatted with him recently. I'm going to switch my light on in a second because it's got dark.
Yeah.
And he does a show where he's going through, the old-fashioned cassette culture that we used to have, where people used to have their own independent labels, and they just put loads of local groups and everything onto cassettes.
Yeah, I was
and
in
gave them to people.
Too. Yeah.
We've all done it. I mean, I had Smelly Dog Records in the 90s, and
killer.
So,
you're a musician. Anybody who's a musician knows this for sure.
So he's basically following up all this. He's catching up with people who were in that industry or in that sort of scene back then, and they're talking about it, and they're even going to things like Delirium Records and the people behind that. And Delirium Records were the people who originally Stephen Wilson went through with Porcupine Tree and those things that he did back then. And then you get Osric Tentacles from other different band, independents.
Right.
So that's the cool thing. So he gets to interview these people. You get clips of bits from the tapes that were made back then.
Yep.
But every so often he'll have an entire episode that's no talking and just stuff taken from these tapes from back in the late 80s and the 90s. That's really cool.
That is so great too, because that's the really neat thing about this format. There really aren't any rules, and the whole idea that we have to do it a certain way always drives me crazy, man. There's because you're a musician, you'll understand this as well. I think there's a huge difference between being a podcaster and having a podcast. I think it's kind of the same thing as being a musician versus having records. Like, I have records. I'm like, yeah, me too. But I also play music. They're like, oh yeah, I can. It's like, not really. You like, some people just, I think, really like having things. Like, I like to have a podcast. I like to say I have a podcast. I think I'm the opposite. I really don't care if I say I have a podcast. I don't really tell people in my real life I have a podcast. It's kind of embarrassing to me. Yeah. But I love podcasting. I can't stay off the mic because to me it's like jamming. When else do I get to talk to a gentleman from halfway around the third way around the world?
Yeah.
Like this. This is really cool to me. So I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you about all things, both podcasting and music. But throughout the conversation, you'll probably hear me make a lot of analogies to the music industry.
Cool. But we'll get started in a moment. But what you just said then, that makes me think of, I listened to, I think it's Gavin Gaddis from Sounds Profitable. And they were saying that, I think it was their show, it might have been another one, where they were saying that there's a difference between podcasters and celebrities who make a podcast. Mm-hmm. And he said, there's a complete different style to it. And I agree with him. I almost see the celebrity podcast almost as just replacement for radio in a way. Replacement for radio.
I don't, it's hard to talk about this in a weird sense because I don't really hate on celebrities because there are a lot like people like us that happen to have become successful and then they become a different thing. So whatever. But once you get celebrity and that kind of power, and then the new channel opens up, like when desktop publishing came up. Well, of course, I started making all my own flyers because, well, I'm not a desktop publisher. I was a band guy who needed flyers. So I started using that tool. When MySpace came on, I wasn't a technical web guy, but I used that web. And then over the years, you accumulate so much of these different knowledges that you're just like, oh, actually, yeah, I do know all of these things, but I still, at my core, I feel like I'm a presenter, a performer, or someone that just is able to take a story or information and jive it up just a little bit to make it slightly more exciting to pass it on to the next person.
Agreed. Now, Jesse is going to be really irritated with me because when he comes to edit it, he'll watch all of this and he'll say, this isn't in the main show.
If this is recorded, you're totally welcome to use anything.
Yeah, I'll tell him that. He knows that. I record the whole conversation from beginning to end, and then I'll give him where the show starts and ends, but he still watches the whole thing through.
Yeah, I do my own editing. It's a pain in the ass.
because he suggested to me that he said what you should do. He said is these great chats that you had before. He said you should clip those and make a smaller show out of those.
Mhm. Yeah,
He said
that's how I do,
because
honestly.
yeah,
With like the one Rena and I do,
yep,
I take the audio from that and put it in my old school RSS feed audio podcast. It's been there forever.
yeah,
Well, I did it once different and I picked it up and I got taken down for a minute until I said, oh, no, I didn't mean to do that. Anyway, take the audio from that. I take the video that we record and chop that up, and it becomes technically a separate Spotify podcast of
yeah,
only the clips from that show. The problem was when I uploaded both in their entirety, Spotify was noticing I was putting one whole audio podcast that matched one whole video podcast in two different channels. And they're like, no, you can't do that. So that said, yeah, I love capturing the weird stuff. This is like when I was living in Los Angeles and I would take a Uber or a Lyft ride and, 20 minutes across town or whatever. And like the last 30 seconds, I'm like, hey, by the way, what do you do? Oh, I'm a director. I just did this award-winning film. And I'm like, oh. And I look at his name, go to IMDb real quick. I'm like, oh, what? So anyway, so I always think like I need to ask those questions up front and get the weird stuff going. Just break the ice, talk about interesting stuff.
yeah.
But yeah, also record. I capture my audio on Hindenburg on my side. So whatever people are talking about, but I don't always say, oh, by the way, I started recording 20 minutes ago. Fortunately, it's usually the opposite. People say, oh man, too bad we weren't recording. And I'm like, but we were. No, I'm not recording this time though. I honestly, dude, I don't go on other people's podcasts.
No, I'm gonna send what I get back to you actually, and then you can do with it what you want.
Oh, sweet. Because if it's good, I'll use it on our channel too. I'd like going back and forth. In fact, we'll get to that when I tell you just more about what What's Up really is.
Okay. Here we go then.